So we have conducted a series of interviews for this project, and we would just like you to introduce yourself and tell us what your role in this project was and what this interview is for.
Well, thank you for choosing to interview me and for asking to interview me. For me and for Shpresa, it's always about people and it's always about local people. So Olympic Games were a really interesting time for Shpresa Programme, as well as for me as a chief executive of Shpresa. It was a chance, a lifetime opportunity where people can play their role. But before they do that, they need to be organized and they need to know that they are coming and they need to know that well ahead. And today is just another example where one of the children and young people that was raised at Shpresa invites you to be interviewed for such roles. So Nafiola, I'm really, really privileged to be and give this interview for you here. But as well as for me as Luljeta, I see a role fulfilled.
So just give us a breakdown of the timeline of when Shpresa Programme started to think about getting involved with the Olympic Games and what steps they took to get there.
So in 2004, we decided to become member of Telco, which is one of the chapters of London Citizens. And we were involved in another campaign, Lunar House Inquiry. And as a result of going to the places, we heard their open letter. And that sounds surreal for most of our members because quite a lot of them didn't have the right to remain. They were asylum seekers, migrants, they couldn't speak the language and they were feeling really lonely. And Olympic was such a far away thing for them and to convince. But it was amazing for us as a team of young mothers with children to look at as a dream and to go beyond the immediate need that people have at that time and be inspired by watching others that were established to see how they talked about it, how they planned, and how they got the excitement and people excited around the opportunities. And as the community settled and our work with children and young people evolved, we started to put sports as part of our day-to-day delivery. So we started with football, we started with kickboxing, and young people got involved, but as well as we got the traditional games as a break while the parents were learning English or they were outgoing and learning to travel on the buses and trains. And 2006, when we had the Winter Olympic Games, we had mini competition in our sessions, and people started to talk more about the sports, about the games, and started to watch the programs. And then we had the 2008 Beijing, Games, and there were even more excitement amongst all our young people and children. And they wanted to perform to this, wonderful audiences and started to even train harder and to dream that one day they can, perform at such stages. And I remember, Tamara, our dancing teacher, really training the young people to become dance leaders and to be able to take opportunities to go and perform and dream that one day they can perform to these stages. And then we had, the Vancouver, Olympic Games in 2010, and those were amazing for everyone. So we watched it together. And then, we had our games in 2012, and here it is. Our young people performed on the day that those games were announced, at the stage that was built in front of the Stratford, Park. And all these things looked like a fairy tale dreams, but it did happen. And it happened because people talked, worked together, learned together, and made this their dream.
So can you tell us a bit more about Shpresa's role in the Olympic Games and what you did at that time?
So there were so many opportunities that people had. And the role of Shpresa is to help the community to access these opportunities that were there. And there were so many issues as well. And we helped people to go and work and fight with other providers and other mainstream institution or national institution to voice their voices. So Shpresa took the community to witness the changes and the opportunities. I remember we had so many tours with our young people, with our women, that not necessarily on their own would have gone. We saw how Stratford Olympic Park were transformed. We saw how bridges were built, how land was clean, how the stadium started to build, and there was a buzz amongst the community, and everything happened so fast. So it was just, wonderful for people to see it, to be part of it. And if we had opportunities to give opinions, we helped the community to give those opinions through competitions or through organizing events. I remember all our children and young people and their parents provided a video to welcome the sport women and sportmen from Albania. They went to the London embassy, to Albanian embassy in centre of London, and welcomed the whole team, in there. And there was the president of Albania and president of Kosovo that spoke to our young people, and they greeted them with flowers, and they had printed lots of publicity where they were taught about where the local shops or restaurants were, and invited them to come to their groups. As part of Telco, we played a really, intensive role. We got people to share the story, especially our young people, in all the negotiations that were, held during that time. So we went to local offices and were part of the negotiation. And I remember going to a number of times with, our young people and our women, and they told them what it's like to live in Newham, what it's like to have all these jobs and not able to access it, how to have these games, to be safer for the young people. And seeing the young people, how confident they become when they negotiated, was great. I remember, having Andrea De Mushi, Lorela De Mushi, Nafiola Vorfi, Danny. I remember to have Alban and Aida. So all these young people today had good jobs. And for a large number of them, their first job was a living wage job at the Olympic Games. What a better start could be for a young person to fight for something and to enjoy the results in a really special time where everyone was enthusiastic. We saw how London transport changed. We saw how they took it really seriously, accessibility, disability, and looking at these details and being able to contribute was amazing. And I always look back, and probably one of the best memories where the enthusiasm was high and was a nice thing to do, it was this period of time. So, I had the chance to go with, my husband and my son to watch the opening ceremony. And it was like, a dream. You can see thousands of people performing. You can see them coming in different shapes and form. You can see the nurses. You can see the history of UK being played in a fabulous, way, and showcasing how beautiful and how magical London can be when everyone works together.
So how did you manage to get local jobs for local people, and what kind of opportunities were relayed for the young people throughout this experience and throughout the Olympic Games?
Being member of Telco and London Citizens create different opportunities, and it maximizes the voices and the lived experiences of people to bring the changes they want. So from outset, we wanted the Olympic Games to be the first ever living Olympic Games. And that was agreed very early, time. The second thing, we wanted to have cities safe. All our young people wanted the games to be safe and the young people to have an opportunity to see it, to watch it, and to get inspired, to get involved in sports. That meant that more resources and more facilities are built, and they will belong to the community after the Olympic Games had finished. And the other thing is, we wanted the living wage jobs for local people, even they didn't have properly the confidence to apply for these jobs. So for us, it was, yes, we can play our part. We are in contact, we are in touch with our local people. It's our job to train them and make them ready. And we took that challenge upon ourselves. We turned our institution into the places where the people can be interviewed, can be trained, can be interviewed, and can be offered a job. And I remember more than 95% of everyone that was, interviewed got the job. And some of our young people were there. So for me, when I went for the first time to watch the performance and I saw one of our young people serving the food, it just was amazing. It was what you fight. And, it can show that when you put your efforts, you can achieve bigger things. And sometimes bigger things are getting the first job. Sometimes it's getting the first house. Sometimes it's just getting the confidence to speak on the stage.
So have you kept in touch with any of the people who received local jobs and opportunities throughout that time, and how has that impacted their life today?
Yes, definitely we are in touch. I know one of the young people is working as a lawyer now. The other one is working for Newham Council. We have a filmmaker. We have people that have gone into accountancy firms. And some of them had their first internship, paid living wage internship with Atkins, because the negotiation and the relationship continued even, beyond the Olympic Games, even when they finished. Our relationship with the mayor of Newham is great, and we're still talking about the CLT, the Community Land Trust, and affordable housing. We, now got the Newham Council that agreed to pay living wage for all its employers, and the number of the institutions that are now paying living wage, to their employees is increased. Millions of people are benefiting, from it. So all the campaigns are worthwhile campaigns. We have continued to keep our members and new arrivals and migrants being part of this agenda, having an opportunity to express what is for them to be at the low end and to be in need of having the first living wage job, or to have the first, affordable house. And to have a city that is safe for, to grow and get involved in sports. So all the work that we did during, the Olympic Games, or during, the building time for the Olympic Games, continue to be prominent in our agenda and matters to our, people. And they are leading most of the campaigns. So it was just amazing. Just before the election that we had recently, we had our women talking about mental health. We had our young people talking about city being safe. We had them talking about, the living wage job. So it's amazing that we still continue to do what we did and continue to negotiate and continue to build people that in a way that nobody else, I think, does, by valuing their lived experience, by giving them the chances to voice what is going on with their lives. I remember how stressed or anxiety we had who is going to win between between London and Paris. I remember that, Paris was ahead of us, and then a number of things happened. And then we were so close to winning. And the film that was made, which was about local people, was about legacy, it made a real difference. And on the day when it was announced, it was 54 against 50. The cheer at Trafalgar Square was amazing. And on the same day, we had the performance at Stratford. And it's a nice coincidence. I don't think, we planned it. It was just a nice coincidence. But it was a great one. And our hearts and our souls were just, feeling wonderful. And our young people were performing on traditional costumes on that stage. And then it was just magical. And I remember me and my colleague Flutra and Ermir were three of us really applauding and encouraging everyone to, applaud to our young people that were performing, that were really, really helpful. And I remember that, feeling so high and so hopeful. And then a few days later, we had the bombing in London, and that put us really, really low and put a question mark how fragile these Olympic Games could be and how vigilant as a community we should be. And that's why the city safe was a priority for us through our London, through our, Citizens UK involvement. We worked with the whole group, with Paul and Emmanuel and everyone else, to make sure that our young people were involved on the City Safe campaigns, to make sure that all the measures were put in place so London could be the dream city to welcome the Games. And this incident didn't affect the beautiful Games that we dreamed for so long to have. And it did happen. We had amazing Games. Our transport was beautiful. The volunteers did wonderfully, magically welcome everybody. You can see at every station, people, directing people, helping people. And, we were scared that we'll be overpopulated, there will be lots of, people queuing. And no, it felt safe, it felt wonderful, and the weather was nice. So London is beautiful when the weather, it's great. And we had great Games in a great city with great people.
Thank you, Luljeta, for your time and for allowing us to interview you today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.